I am someone who chronically has a lot of self-doubt. I tend to be a quiet person in the room. Confidence doesn't come all that naturally to me. And as I found myself in higher and higher positions of power in a professional setting, I was really struggling with this of like, why do I feel so meek? Why am I so afraid of conflict? Why can't I put on my big girl pants and helmet and like go at it the way some of my colleagues can? Why do I roll over? And I wrote on my whiteboard, which is here to my right, like I am fucking 40. And I came back to it as a mantra because I realized that if I pictured another 40-year-old woman, not myself, mind you, but another person aged 40, I thought I wouldn't fuck with her. I thought, like, that's a woman who knows what the fuck she's doing. That's a woman who knows herself. That's a woman who is strong, who has earned her stripes. You know, you deserve some credit if you're 40.
Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome to the 40 Portal, babe. I'm Catherine Zach. I'm your host. Oh my gosh. This episode might be one of my favorites. I know, I don't say that lightly because all these women are fabulous, but I am working curiously to support my thesis that a woman over 40 is the most powerful, creative, vivifying, sexy, wise, and possibly terrifying creature in the universe. And this episode, this conversation is one of my biggest pieces of proof yet. My guest today is Leah Aviva Rubin-Cadrain, and she writes lullabies for robots. I'm serious. That's the name of her Substack, which is an incredible poetry Substack wherein she's asking the question through her work, exploring the question through her work, who the fuck is AI's mother? Who is mothering AI? This makes perfect sense because Leah works in tech. She works in wearable tech. She is also an artist and a writer and a mother and a wife and a creative spirit who has spent the last several years of her life actually embodying and living the idea that we contain multitudes, that even though we all have these pieces of us that feel contradictory inside of us, we can, by the time we turn 40, start to live in more nuance around those pieces that don't fit neatly together. And she is doing that brilliantly. She's also a woman who has admittedly spent a lot of years being the quiet one in the room, the one who was afraid of conflict, who found herself rolling over, bending herself into knots so that nobody would misunderstand her. I'm familiar with this. But when she turned 40, she wrote the words, "I am fucking 40" on her whiteboard, and that became her mantra. In this episode, we talk about invisibility, about exploding your life, about the courage it takes to do the embarrassing but real thing, the brave thing to do it anyway, and about what it means to finally look at yourself the way you'd look at another woman over 40 and think, meh, I wouldn't fuck with her. That is this episode with Leah. It is so, so good. Okay, this is as always, a broad, freewheeling and dealing conversation that has a lot of range. Take care of yourself as you listen. We mention fertility struggles, miscarriage, and postpartum anxiety, and so much more, which actually those things might like draw you in and say, yes, I need to hear Leah's story, because you do. So let's go.
So the first time we met, we spent it wasn't a weekend, it was a part of an actual work week, but it was a couple days together. And that's one of my favorite ways to get to know someone, is just to go all in. But I feel like a distinct memory is coming to me of that first bit of time that we spent together, which was being on a walk It was maybe like late afternoon. It was March or April. It was not great weather, but like the daffodils were pushing up, and it felt like that kind of hopeful part of like early spring starting to break open. And you had recently turned 40. I'm giving away your age already, but you had recently turned 40, and I was a few months out from turning 40, and I also really love when someone is, we're each on our own paths, but when someone is just like a few steps ahead of me on a path, I'm like, ooh, 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 like almost like you're like become like, it's like a pace setter or something. I'm like, okay, how'd it go? What was the last like? And you also told me about the way you celebrated your 40th birthday, which I was kind of obsessed of like, how am I going to spend the day? How am I going to spend the weekend? And I actually don't even remember how I do remember like clips, but I would get the story wrong. So do you remember that conversation? How did you spend your 40th birthday?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to say.
I remember it well. That was a really special getaway that we did together. We were strangers to each other before that, and we just like went right in. I remember the walk. I remember we had to walk single file at certain points because it was a busy road, right? And there wasn't a sidewalk. And I remember talking about turning 40, and I remember you introducing the term 40 portal, which I loved and took with me. I remember you were talking about, oh, maybe I'll go to Paris. Were you talking about, somebody was talking about Paris.
I went to Paris. Yeah, I did go in October. Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
I did end up doing that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling excited for you and excited that I had gone first as well, because I had good news to share about what was on the other side. I was feeling really, really powerful right after turning 40. And I had a really beautiful celebration with just like the closest people in my life. My wife rented out a room in a restaurant that's just in our little village, and invited everyone to come wear something fancy and bring an offering. And people showed up in the most cool and brave ways. I mean, there was everything from like parody songs to poems to dance routines. A guitar came out, a cello came out. So it was a wonderful night. Yeah.
I love that idea for a party. And I also know that some women listening to this are not yet 40, and they're like, literally, how do I want to spend it? How do I want to spend it? And that's a really cool one. I want to hear more about, did you come up with that, or did your wife come up with that?
I think the overall container was mine. Like I knew I wanted to be with loved ones. And she basically did the rest. And she's like a wonderful performer herself, and a Leo, so no trouble being an MC. I remember that about you too. I love Leos. So it was a chance for her to shine as well.
We love that.
Yes. And yeah, she did all of the work, and I just showed up.
I feel like a question that women confront with their 40th birthday, or any big birthday, or even a regular birthday. Like, I have a friend whose 41st birthday is today. She's episode 5 on the podcast, Kim Wenzel. And it's
Happy birthday,
it's a
Kim.
Tuesday. Yeah, happy birthday, Kim. It's a Tuesday in the life, man. It's a Tuesday in the life. And I think, yeah, so how do I want to spend it? And I feel like, especially for a bigger birthday, people are like, do I want a party or not?
Yeah. Do I just want to go somewhere alone and have a little bit of a retreat and some reflection time? It's hard to boil all your wishes and desires and dreams down to one evening, isn't it? So you sort of do a thing, right? It doesn't have to be the last or the only thing that you do. But I don't know. I found a party. It was great because I wouldn't otherwise ask to be the center of attention. And so this was sort of an explicit, look at her, celebrate her. And it also gave me an opportunity to give a toast to my friends and loved ones. And I loved the opportunity to address them. And in thinking about what to say, I realized that while I had been approaching, for months, I'd been approaching my 40th birthday with some dread, because I did have this sad sense of turning a corner, like beyond which I was becoming invisible, because I was starting to acknowledge and really understand the way in which women past the age of 40 are not perceived any longer as sexually or romantically viable, as desirable. And I had been sort of working through that. And I did come to a place in the weeks leading up to the event of fuck it, and of deciding that I didn't see myself that way, and it being able to kind of present that finding to the to the group, and present that journey to the group.
Wow, so much there. I love the reciprocity, that's the word I'm using, of the way you're like, it was like a give and take. Like, I got to be the center of attention, but also I got to sit like, face to face with these people and reflect back to them like what they mean to me in getting to this point.
Yeah, that's the same way I remember feeling about getting married. I don't know what it was like for you, but I felt, gosh, Lindsay and I had been together for a long time already at that point. That wasn't like news. Our commitment wasn't new. But what felt really new and exciting and big was to like bring all of our community into the fold with us, and have them kind of be our witnesses, and have a chance to tell them like, you are our people. We need you. You're the ones we want to celebrate with. It's the same kind of vibe.
I love that, because I feel like the way we celebrate big things, I mean, we'll just stick with weddings for a moment. In our society, it's like to do really different things than we do on any different day, which can be fun and like celebratory. But talk about pressure on a day, to hold everything. And what I hear you saying is like, I'm filling in a blank for you, which is like, actually, these people are so integral to our life. And so having them, like having it be something like we're celebrating their presence and their role in our marriage too, feels like it actually brings the everyday into the special day.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and I remember structuring that whole celebration like, my vision was, let this be sort of a campfire sing-along, and I really wanted to channel that energy. That's kind of all I ever want, to be honest, Kat. It's like,
I figured.
sing songs around a campfire.
It's cool. You're just showing who you are in these big moments, but like that's beautiful. Okay, so the invisibility thing is a topic that has come up on the 40 portal before, and it actually came up at my birthday party. And this was in Becca's episode, because so this question of, do I become invisible, I feel like is one that a lot of women hold as they approach their 40th birthday. And I have just anecdotal evidence on this, but so Becca, who was about to turn 40, like wrote basically that question into the book at my birthday party. And it was like, what happens when we become invisible? Like, do we have to? What happens? And then someone else who was in her like early mid 40s, like saw that at the top of a piece of paper and was like, can I respond to this? And I read that response to Becca in her episode. So I'll link to that in the show notes. But basically this woman who's just like, again, a few years ahead of us on the path was like, yeah, you know what? You do become invisible in some settings. And it's actually the settings that were always the most exhausting to be visible in. And now that I am invisible there's so much freedom that gives to my life. And I feel really seen in the places where I want to be seen.
Whoa, that is such a good answer. Oh man, that's so true. I that resonates as true. Has it been your experience?
I don't know. Actually, I haven't really thought about it as much. I feel like I feel like I'm still, I don't know where I am with it yet. But I will also say that my little anecdotal cultural anthropology is showing me that like a bunch of women that I've spoken to in their like 50s, 60s, and 70s are like, this isn't even on my radar. I don't even fucking care.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that the hang up that was kind of crippling me was kind of it was like external. I mean, it was about like appearance and beauty and desirability and sexuality. And like on that particular front, I felt like I'm not ready for like that part of my life to be over. Um but what what I've come to see, like, so I turned 41 this April now. So I'm a veteran now into my 40s. I I it took me a long time in my life to connect with my body and to feel like had like a lot of body awareness, and I knew how to care for my body. And the older I've gotten, the more I've been able to appreciate my body and express my body. And like self-care was a very foreign concept to me until a couple years ago. But even learning to like take a moment to lotion myself up in a gentle way after a shower, or learning that I don't have to stand shivering cold after I take a shower. Like I can wrap myself in a nice yummy robe. There's these little ways in which I started to build practices of like body connection into my life. Even like putting on lipstick just about every day. And in these ways, I started to feel more physically and sexually, honestly, alive than I ever had before. And so I think this shift was, yeah, that it's kind of an internal setting, and it's an energy that I can exude or not.
That's right. And you know what? I have thought about this. I'm like, of course I've thought about this. I feel that. I actually feel really visible because I feel that like churning from the inside out. Like I feel really powerful. I feel like I'm the strongest I've ever been. I feel like I'm the most available to like freedom. And all those things are really sexy and like, I think really beautiful as well. I feel like the visibility piece that I'm a little bit hung up on right now is actually something different, which is I am learning to care less about how I appear to other people. I think that that's like a slightly different thing maybe than appearance. It's more like, and you and I were talking about this before we started recording, just like I've never allowed myself, I don't think intentionally, to be like misunderstood or unliked by people. Like I think I would always like bend over backwards to like be like, no, 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 you didn't, like, this is how it is. And like, really, I did it because blah, 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 blah. Or like, I can just make this whole situation really nice. I don't know. That's like I am starting to loosen my grip on that kind of perception, which is kind of scary and wild.
Yeah, the like the manicured image and trying to stay in control of that narrative. Uh-huh. I relate to that. I think a big part of my journey to to the wise age of 41 has been uh realizing that I'm not responsible for the way everyone feels, about all things, but including about me, right? And like that has really helped all of my relationships and connections, and even just the little things of like I'm ready to leave a party because I'm tired or I'm talked out, and I can leave. I don't need to make a million apologies and excuses or construct an elaborate explanation. And nobody, it's not my responsibility if how others feel about that, and it's for the best for all of us if I do what I need to do.
Yeah, done. Like that's it. But how do you, I mean, okay, I want you to introduce yourself in a moment, but like how do you think you learned that? Is it time? Is it age? Is it therapy? Is it hard conversations? Is it ayahuasca? I don't know. Like what do you feel, or like was it a situation that was really hard that you had to like
Yeah. I mean, honestly, all of the above. Because I'm very programmed to be really the opposite way, and that's just a function of a lot of things. Being a middle child, being like an achiever who wants to really like control the way things happen. Um, and I could go on, but the process of unlearning that was honestly probably mostly instigated by some problems I was having in my marriage, to be totally honest, where I learned through really, really amazing and productive couples counseling that I was oversensitive, like to a fault, to the moods and experience of my wife, and that I was internalizing her anxieties as a reflection on myself. And just kind of learning that there's not necessarily a string attaching her to me at all moments, right? That we're like separate separate beings was a game changer for our relationship. That and also me learning how to get angry, which is another journey that I've been on that's been rewarding.
Oh, I love that for you. I love that for you. Okay, now people are like, who is talking? Will you please, who is this fabulous woman? Will you tell us what your name is and your pronouns? And then go deeper. Is there a story about your name? How does your name feel like in terms of your identity or anything you want to share?
Yeah, well, I'm Leah Aviva Rubin-Cadrain. That's a first name, a middle name, and a hyphenated last name. What I can tell you about my name is, I guess the hyphenated name has been a burden that I've carried my whole life. It is the product of having hippie parents, feminist parents, who wanted their three girls to carry on both of their, lineages, I suppose, which I appreciate, except when I'm filling in my name on a standardized test. But the problem is actually that when you yourself get married, if you do, and have kids if you do, which I did, I have one, you then have to figure out what the hell to do with your last name, because you cannot continue to hyphenate into oblivion. So I've brought this to my parents on many occasions, and they've just said, that wasn't our problem to deal with. So I retained my name once I got married, because I really am the only, aside from my sisters, and some of their names have changed by now, but the only Rubin-Cadrain. And I feel very attached to it. And I didn't want to add more names into the mix. So yeah, it's a very distinctive thing about me. And I've been attracted throughout my life to other hyphenated people as well. We always seem to find each other.
I feel like that was very 80s. I'm sure it happened in other decades too, but I feel like that was like the 80s feminist
The
solution.
answer to the patriarchy. Yeah. My parents were very, very intentional about the way the balance of power in our home. And I remember them telling me that they had made like a list of every single kind of chore and obligation that existed in the home, and dividing them up equally, which was an idea that was way ahead of its time, I think. And I'm grateful to them for being so mindful of equality. But yeah, it's a humdinger of a name. My middle name is a palindrome. Aviva means spring in Hebrew. My dad's Jewish. My mom was Catholic. So that's I love that name, and I love that it's the same forwards and backwards, because I love words and letters. And Leah is a biblical name. If you put a B in front of it, it spells blah. But Leah, if you look it up, I'm pretty sure what like the name dictionary will tell you is that Leah is the weary one, which, to be honest, right now I feel really deeply.
I know this because I did an interview a few weeks ago with another Leah who also
Hey, Leah.
claimed the weary one, although she spells, her parents did let's spell it differently thing. So she's Lia. But
Cool.
the weary, we talked about this. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Funny, right? And she was also like the one that Jacob didn't want to marry, I think. He got kind of tricked into her. So it's kind of a sad origin story. But saying your name is Leah always elicits a how is that spelled? So that's a conversation starter. A lot of people want to call you Leah. I accept all of it. And yeah, that's me.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so then how would you introduce yourself first if like job titles, accomplishments, labels were not part of your first draft of copy?
Yeah. Yes, I've heard you ask that question before, and I'm still going to struggle to answer it. I would describe myself as um a child of New England, who grew up loving the outdoors, who is a creative person fundamentally in my soul, a writer and an artist, a lover of family, um, uh, and at this point in my life, a mom. And that is certainly a defining part of my life now. Um, those are the main narrative threads.
Say more if you want to about the mom piece, which you kind of like paused and
Oh
gave.
gosh. Well, because it's everything to me. I wanted to have a baby for a long time before I could. And I know I'm not the first guest to talk with you about that either, but I started trying to get pregnant when I was 35, and I had my baby when I was 39, I think. And those years in between included COVID, and because I'm married to a woman, we needed we were doing pregnancy through IUI and IVF, so our clinics shut down for some time in there. It was a much harder fertility journey than I had ever expected. It was oh my gosh, our dog died. Anyway, yeah, I felt at times that we would never get there, and the more I couldn't have a baby, the more I wanted a baby. And so oh, and then there was, miscarriages and a lot of raised expectations that were disappointed. And so anyway, by the time I got my baby, um and she's probably going to be my only baby, I was predisposed to cherish every moment of that experience of becoming a mom, and I still feel like I'm living in that space. I had really extreme postpartum anxiety right after my daughter was born, and I was so upset at the idea of missing this time with her, of kind of being so panicked and tense that I wasn't in the moments, that I finally went and got a prescription for Zoloft, which once I started taking it and realized how much easier life could be, I realized I probably could have benefited from that a long time ago. But it was becoming a mom that catalyzed me to care enough about my experience and about not missing my experience to really try to fix the problem. And I've been really proud of myself for continuing to stay present with my daughter as a mom. And I feel like she's a miracle. I feel that way constantly. Maybe all parents do, but being a mom is certainly defining for me. And it's become a really huge source and subject of my creativity as well. So it's linked into kind of the deepest parts of myself.
Will you tell us a little bit more about that?
I will, yeah. So, you asked me to omit my like professional log lines, but what I do for work is I have this very niche kind of role in tech, where I'm a creative director in tech who helps to like um, develop experiences for wearable technology. So like if you're wearing a pair of smart glasses, they can do things, right? But like what sorts of things should they be able to do? How should they do them? How should this voice interact with you, engage you, talk with you? More and more in the past few years, this became work that really was powered by AI. And so I was doing a lot of work with conversation designers, which is actually a real name for a real job, to figure out, what are the right prompts and what are the right system prompts and persona to give the AI to make the experience useful and fulfilling and trust building. Anyhow, it was I was in this work when I had my baby, and I had my baby also right around the time that AI was really going mainstream. I think I shared this with you, where like ChatGPT came out, and I was nursing, and I had my first conversation with ChatGPT with like my newborn on my lap, and I had this very profound sense in that moment that AI was my new baby too. Like I saw that flickering cursor as I was waiting for it to respond. And I was like, baby's first words. I had just like such a pervasive maternal worldview in that moment. And I was super hormonal. Um, but I really did start to feel this sense of like maternal care toward this like machine that was talking to me, in the sense of like, who's taking care of you? Who's gonna teach you how to be, and who's gonna guide you. And that so my work and my motherhood and my writing have all become linked in this like matrix of that subject, which is about like, what is it that makes us human, what separates us from machines. And also, I think what I've realized is one of the most human feelings of all is having a mother, right? And also being a mother. And that's an experience that machines will never have. And so I'm really trying to outline it and articulate it in my personal creative writing in a way that really does influence my work and vice versa.
I remember sitting with you because the context in which we met was a homegrown writers retreat. Like we were organizing our own writers retreat, which I think there's something really beautiful about that too. Like just democratizing and claiming our own creativity in that way. Like I don't know, we organized it. That's who did it, you know.
Totally.
Kate did. Yeah, and Dina and you and I. And I don't think you had launched the Substack yet, or maybe you just had, but you were describing what what you just described, and we were all like, this needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, AI has been like examined through so many lenses and so many critical lenses, as it should be. But like through the lens of maternal care, I haven't seen it much discussed that way. But really, I mean, especially as this technology was really just emerging, like at scale to the public, like it was it had a lot of the capabilities and tendencies that like toddlers do. And I feel like, mothers, parents interacting with it probably felt that way. Like it needed to explain the most basic things, and it needed to instill some common sense and lay some ground rules. And I became very aware that like the language of training large language models is very similar to the language of child rearing. And the way you model behavior, and then it gets kind of spat back to you. And then there's the fact that like the whole world is essentially training or parenting AI, in that everything we put on the internet does become fuel, like a data set that teaches AI. And so we are shaping each other, all of us. We're all sort of parenting AI, some more directly than others. But I started my Substack probably a month after we had that retreat. That was the retreat where I had been really stewing on this topic and writing essays around it. But our mutual friend Kate inspired me to try writing poetry. And I discovered that form really then, and have like learned a lot about the craft since then. But I have really found it to be like a very expressive medium for me. And I've been writing poems in that kind of that universe of themes for almost exactly a year.
What is the name of the Substack? So I mean, we'll link to it, but so people can start Googling it immediately.
It's called Lullabies for Robots.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay, you told us how old you are, 41. You just turned 41. How old do you feel? And I want to circle back to something you said about turning on our walk. You're like, I just turned 40.
Mm.
And you said something, you either said I felt powerful or I
Yeah.
felt the power of that. I don't know. Go from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, let me circle back to how old I feel. I have to think about that. But the powerful feeling I can express exactly. I am someone who chronically has a lot of self-doubt. I tend to be a quiet person in the room. Confidence doesn't come all that naturally to me. And as I found myself in higher and higher positions of power in a professional setting, I was really struggling with this of like, why do I feel so meek? Why am I so afraid of conflict? Why can't I put on my big girl pants and helmet and like go at it the way some of my colleagues can? Why do I roll over? And I wrote on my whiteboard, which is here to my right, like I am fucking 40. And I came back to it as a mantra because I realized that if I pictured another 40-year-old woman, not myself, mind you, but another person aged 40, I thought I wouldn't fuck with her. I thought, like, that's a woman who knows what the fuck she's doing. That's a woman who knows herself. That's a woman who is strong, who has earned her stripes. Um, you know, you deserve some credit if you're 40. And I wanted to turn that framing back onto myself. And it worked really well. Like I would say I'm fucking 40. I have a right to be here, right? I have a right to speak. Like I've earned my place. And yeah, for me, because I've always already spent many years feeling younger than everyone else, kind of owning this kind of more like veteran position in a room felt really empowering.
Fucking 40. I love it. It's so good. It's so powerful. Again, my cultural anthropology here is like, I'm quite convinced that like a woman in her 40s is like one of the most powerful and sexy and liberated and terrifying creatures in the universe, because we are straddling that line of like being able to, I think, again, a system download of like a new level of understanding that you have, I don't know, a right to be, whatever it is, whatever that source of power and freedom is. For me, it feels like freedom. I don't know. And I also feel like that might have something to do with like this invisibility narrative too. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. The it's so true. There is so much power in invisibility, and I think I was sad or I was fearful of like of my waning sexual power, but I think it's like something my wife says. My wife is more like masculine presenting, and she's always said she finds it to be a real asset in a room full of men in a professional setting because any kind of just even like implicit like tension that would exist normally between men and women is sort of stripped away, and she gets to just kind of be in the fold. And I do think maybe there's something to that about being a more feminine presenting woman, is that like um that we're not starting on the from the grounds of like, are we going to ask each other out for a drink? Right? Like it's I mean, at least that's what gives the power to the invisibility. I think at the end of the day, you're right. Like women in their 40s are probably more sexy than they've ever been, and you may well end up getting asked for a drink,
oh,
right?
I think so. What I think about the invisibility thing is they're like, oh, let's make her invisible because she's too terrifying to like look at. That's
Mm.
where what I'm feeling about that.
Too terrifying to look at. Like, yeah. Like you cannot behold the face of God.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
woman in her 40s, fucking 40. Okay, do you have an answer as to how old you feel, or if not, we can skip it.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say I feel exactly my age. Like, I'm 41 now, and it's the best age I've ever been. And I felt that way last year and the year before that. And I feel uh, more and more entitled to do the things I like and to admit the things that I don't like. For example, I've realized at this age that I just don't like to cook. And I pretended to, and I tried to, but it's just not one of the things that I feel obligated to spend my time on anymore at this point in my life. So yeah, I feel very 41, and that's a very like fertile time in my life.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So I'm kind of smushing together a couple questions, which is there's like, what are you supposed to have done by now? Or is there like a script you were given about this age? How does it map onto your experience?
Oh gosh, by 41. To be really honest with you, like I have edged closer and closer to fulfilling my dreams the older that I've gotten. So I would, if you had asked me 5 years ago, I might have said like my life feels really far from the life I imagined for myself. But I feel like almost like I'm unpeeling an onion. Like I'm getting back to closer and closer to what my vision has always been. I live in a beautiful place, um, close to lots of nature. I live close to my family. I have a beautiful family. Okay, I mean, what was I supposed to do though? Um, I suppose there are one aspect of life that I haven't like totally unlocked yet that I imagine people my age have is I always wanted to have the kind of home that always has kind of open doors and people can float in and out and there's always a seat at the table for anyone who wants to join, and be like really networked into a close community, um, and maybe I did picture that for myself at this age, and I'm still working on that. I've only lived where I live for a couple years, and it takes a lot of time to develop friendships with women in the neighborhood. And I also am not um, uh, outgoing by design. So I think in order to cultivate that type of an atmosphere in my home and that type of a community, that'll be a many year project for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is one thing that your 10 years ago self, so 31-year-old Leah, what was that? What would she be really surprised about, if anything, about your life today?
Yeah, okay. 10 years ago, I was 31. I was living in Los Angeles. I was not yet married. I'd be surprised. All right, so I spent a lot of my career hating what I did. I worked in advertising, and I felt really stuck there for a lot of my 30s. So I might really be surprised at I how I was able to change my career and work more deeply in emerging technologies and innovation and like product design. I think that felt very unattainable to me about 10 years ago. Um, so that would surprise me. I might be surprised that I only have one child. You know, as someone who grew up very close to siblings and and who feels like that they're a really precious part of my life. I always assumed I would have more than one kid. So feeling ready to stop at one has been a really surprising um, difference from my kind of the blueprint that I had laid out. Um, and yeah, I mean that that's a whole other conversation, but that took a lot of kind of internal self-reflection to come to accept that that's probably the truth.
Mm, I selfishly love talking to people who are pretty much exactly my age. Like, I just think 1985 is it was such a cool crop of people.
It
And
was.
it was. And you touched on this earlier when you were talking about your journey to having your child. And like you mentioned COVID. And I think, we're maybe just now beginning to really start to see what the impact of this has been. And who knows if it'll be like generations from now that we're like, oh, and that was the era that, you know, of COVID, and that's what happened. And we focus a lot of that on like younger people, like kids who were in school or kids who were in high school or college kids who got robbed of their whatever, or people who were just graduating from college and entering the job market. We were like squarely in our mid-30s when COVID hit, like 34 turning 35. And I have to tell you, I think that was a really weird time as well to experience COVID.
It's true. It's true. I think it's a really weird chapter that continues to have lingering effects on all of us who are around. But yeah, for being at our age, like mid-career, right? Um, uh, for me, the switch to working from home was for a long time a very good thing, and I think a lot of moms feel that way in particular. But I wasn't even a mom yet. I was just kind of an introverted creative who found it's like kind of stressful to be around people in a big office building all day. So I felt very protected by working from home, and like I was in a safe space from which I could be my most powerful and do my best work. But I think it also became, if you don't do the things that scare you, you do stop growing. And so I think it became too comfortable a place for me, and too much of a comfort zone over the years to follow, because I continued to work from home for a long time. And of course, like that doesn't even account for the effect it has on your relationship, right? Like all of us who were booed up by then, I think went through like profound growing pains with our partners. I mean, there were like wonderful things about spending so much time together, but also a lot of hard realities.
Mm-hmm. This is a theory I'm working with now. I feel like my 20s and my 30s were really this time of like trying to put pieces together, like across many areas of life, like build the career, find the place you want to live, find a partner if that's what you're trying to do, establish your family, like grow in your profession, all these things. And so there's a lot of what I'll call like coming together and like trying to put it together energy. And then COVID felt very much like an experience of things falling apart. And I don't quite know where that's landed me, but I also feel less of that needing to put things together energy now in my 40s.
It's funny. My best friend is a very anxious person, and she said that the pandemic actually made her feel sane, because it's as though everyone else rose to the same level of panic at which she lives her daily life. And she was like, I'm prepared for this. Like my kind of like my like alert level is perfectly calibrated to this moment, and like I'm not alone in it anymore, and actually this isn't what you were saying, but the coming apart of it all, we were having trouble with our fertility process. Our dog had died, and I was really, really sad. And I remember finding some solace as well in the fact that a lot of people in the world were feeling sad and unmoored and adrift. Yeah, that was a profoundly strange time.
Completely. Okay, let's bring it to 2026 and being in your early 40s now. What are you learning? What is your growing edge? What have you is there something that has clicked for you since turning 40? What do you feel like you're sitting in the middle of right now? Anything come up?
Yeah, I mean, uh, I have grown into my creative life more and more the older that I get. I always wanted to have a real creative practice, and this is the year that it really came together for me. I I started to write most days, and to like flex that muscle in a repeatable way. Um, I think I'm tempted into black and white thinking around like either I'm an artist or I'm a worker. And if my real self is an artist, then I am disrespecting it and quashing it by also doing other things in life. And so I would say my growing edge is trying to have more nuance and subtlety, in the fact that like I contain many versions of myself, right? And they're all true. Um, and one doesn't come at the expense of another. And I don't necessarily have to never work again and get an MFA in creative writing, although that sounds really nice. Um, but perhaps I can create like a system of synergy where the parts feed each other, or where some just get more air and sunshine sometimes than others do. Um, and and that even if I am having a hard time waking up at 5:30 to do my writing, I could still wake up at 6:30 and get something done. So trying not to live in these kind of extremes, where I'm one thing or another, and trying to make room for coexistence.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I think a lot of us are really grappling with that, especially the like, and being a product of the time and perhaps the place and way some of us were raised. Like the idea of being put into like a particular box feels like that's just how I grew up. Like, oh, you're this, you're like a liberal arts academic and not an athlete or whatever it is. And like the boxes are both comfortable and they're black and white and they're easy for us to organize each other. But I feel like so many of us either have like blown ourselves wide open out of the box we were placed in, and now maybe we're like, I don't even know if I like belong in a box or
Oh
maybe it's many
yeah.
boxes,
Well, I've had to practice that as well in the process of coming out, which started for me like in my mid-20s, and it was a very confusing time, and I was trying to figure out, am I gay? Am I queer? Am I bisexual? Am I straight? But just kind of with with some other tendencies. And I remember feeling distinctly that I was like stepping out of the lane that I had been assigned for maybe the first time ever in my life, having been on such like a track towards success. I felt like I was really swerving in a way that was super uncomfortable. And like, I was kind of like inviting the evil eye. But yeah, learning how to find even nuance in like my sexual orientation and identity has been really well, first of all, it made me brave. It forced me to find my courage. But yeah, it also like it taught me that there's room for nuance in the same way that we were just talking about.
Do you have anything else to say about brave and
I
courage? Being
do.
brave. Yeah.
I do. Um, First of all, when it comes to coming out, anyone who's been through that knows like the inherent awkwardness and mortification of having to speak about your sexual preferences in a public way, right? Like it's not something that is expected of most people as they come of age. Um, and yeah, it's a bit of an unfair burden to carry, but it's also like I feel like so kind of forged in the fire for having done that and come through the other side. Um, and there's another role model I always think of when it comes to bravery, and that's my older sister. Actually, after I had come out, my older sister fell in love with a woman, and she was at that time married to a man, and she was a bit of a public figure, and I was so afraid for her because to undo the choices she had already made was going to be extremely painful, and just extremely bumpy, and I didn't think she should do it, and I wanted to spare her the pain, but she did. She, through many hard conversations and panic attacks, like had a lot of hard conversations and ended her marriage and built a new life with this new person who's the love of her life, who had to do a similar amount of like labor on her side. And for all my horror at the time, I look back on that as such an instructive thing to watch someone you love go through, because it taught me for sure that you can blow up your life. Like it's never too late to explode the choices that you've made and to try something else. Um, right? And having kind of a model and a proof point that like you can walk through something like that and live to tell about it was huge. And I think about that a lot. Not that I haven't necessarily exploded my life in such like a in such like a dynamic way, but I do feel freed by her example that like if there's things that aren't right for me, they can always change, right? Like nothing is permanent.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And also, I have nothing to add that's going to be interesting, but I am curious too. This is something I'm playing with is like, and we can learn from each other and we can see each other. And I love that phrase, like forged in the fire, forged by the fire. And I think that often we don't want to obviously touch the fire, right? Like that's like, ooh, you put your hand on the stove, you're like, okay, never mind. But like we can learn from each other, but we can't like borrow someone else's freedom. We can't like borrow someone else like going through the fire. Like we have to do those things ourselves too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. The hardest things I've ever gone through, have, it's a cliche, but like, yeah, the hardest things I've gone to me now seem like bedrocks of my identity and of my character.
That is right. That's right. That's right. Oh gosh. Okay. This, I'm going to read from the 40 portal. This is like, it's a similar vibe. It's a little more, well, I don't know. Maybe it's like lighter, but so here it is. This is from a 40-year-old, Hillary, who will be on the podcast at some point. And she said, I think the best part is finally doing whatever I want without fear of judgment. I've had the wedding, the child, bought the house, opened the business, and now I'm going to have the relationship on my terms. I'm going to parent as soft or hard as I want. I'm going to buy that couch and that coffee table that don't go together at all. I'm going to do whatever I want. It's about time. I take society and norms and others' ideas for me and burn them and just start fresh. Bye.
Wise words. Yeah, it's a time to do what you want. I mean, that's like that fuck it, I'm 40 energy that we were talking about. Yeah, I mean, one of the realest ways in which that's showing up in my life is like starting to write poetry. Honestly, poetry is embarrassing. Like, I find I mean, I went to a poetry open mic and read some of my work, and it was like I was so embarrassed for myself. A lot of people don't like poetry. There's a lot of bad poetry out there. I'm new to the art form, so I'm like still finding my voice and my way. But it is so vulnerable to put poetry out there. But I also find it like so, liberating and expressive. I feel like it's a really true version of of at least a part of who I am, and to have the courage to kind of to show that like publicly in a way that like subjects me to criticism and opinion. That's like a very fuck it energy and a very I do what I want. And like I think earlier in my life I probably would have thought, oh, I need to have some sort of qualification, to be a poet, right? Like I need to have done that MFA or studied with some luminary. But no, in fact, like if you read a lot and you practice writing a lot and you like have something to say, you could write poetry. And yeah, that's just an embarrassing thing that I do now.
So good. Have you updated your whiteboard at 41? Is there a new phrase for 41?
God, there should be. I'm looking at my whiteboard now and it's covered with notes for a recent job interview that I had.
Great.
Which is
That
also
works
very
too.
41.
Very 41. I love that. Well, thank you so much. That was brilliant. And I'm just very lucky to know you and chat with you.
Listen, this is a beautiful thing that you're doing. You're an amazing listener, and that's one of the first things I learned about you when we met. I found your energy so quiet and thoughtful and safe, and I love that you are making space for women in your life, and offering it to the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean about Leah? I am fucking 40. Okay, if this conversation cracked something open for you too, that's the portal. That's the portal, babe, doing its thing. Please, please, please share this episode with a woman who you're already having these conversations with in real life. She needs to hear this one too. And if you're loving the show, can you take 30 seconds to rate and review wherever you are listening? It genuinely helps more women find their way here to the portal. They're already in the portal. They just need to know that like it's a thing and we're doing it together. Okay, one more thing. If you are ready to go deeper into your own portal moment, I have a few coaching spots open to begin in September. The application is live. I think I have 3 spots left. You can find out more and apply at the40portal.com/coaching. Okay, see you next week.